on social as well. We are live, so good afternoon, everybody. It's Alex here once again from the Festival of Enterprise, and I'm joined today. We're going to be talking the Agile Office. I'm joined by Ben Neo from Mitel. Ben, how are you doing today?
I'm really good, Alex. Thanks ever so much for having me.
You are very welcome. We've just been catching up on. So I'm here, as you know, those of you who watch this regularly, I'm here in Poole in Dorset, which is unfortunately a bit grey and, well, completely grey and cloudy, if I'm honest with you, today. Whereas Ben's joining us from Reading, but he knows this part of the world really well. So we've got a whole bunch of people piling in. So thank you all for joining us. Socky is from Cardiff, my hometown where I was brought up. We've got Graham from Richmond in Surrey, another beautiful part of the world. Raquel, also from Southwest London, and Peter in Norfolk says hi. Thank you, everybody. Do let us know where you're jumping in from. And as I always say, if you like to share your LinkedIn profile, you'd like to, connect, network on here, this is what we'd be doing in a live scenario, obviously. If we were at the NEC in Birmingham, or whether we'd be at Olympia in London, like we're meant to have been back in April. So do feel free to connect. I've posted my LinkedIn profile up there. Always happy to connect with everybody online, either side of these webinars. Just to frame things up for you for today as well. So Ben's going to be taking us through a presentation to start with. So Ben is the Head of Professional Services and Charities at Mitel. He's responsible for all sales of the Unified Communications and Contact Center portfolio and business development within the professional services and charities sector. He's got over 20 years experience in the Unified Communications business, and he's dedicated to understanding the latest tech and innovation that will enable his clients along their digital transformation journey. Clearly, it's something that a lot of other people, a lot of us have been looking into and learning a hell of a lot more about over the last 4 months. I mean, I can't believe it's literally coming up to 4 months since lockdown. I was just chatting to Melissa Snover from Nourish today up in Birmingham on the first webinar, and she was saying that's when, I think she said it was the 3rd of March that her staff started working remotely. And that was my realization that we're literally 4 months into this, which is crazy now. Clearly, the workplace has changed over the last few months. She was just telling me that they've taken 5 new staff on, and none of them have met each other. They've all been onboarded virtually, and if we, thought about that kind of thing happening before, we wouldn't have known how to deal with it. So people are now becoming more comfortable with digital methods of communicating and interacting. Ben's going to be talking to us about that today. He's going to learn how communication solutions can provide the mobility the modern day employees need to work at home, in the office, and on the go. Also going to tell us about collaboration tools that can enhance the way you work and increase productivity, something we're all interested in, I'm sure. And also enjoy greater flexibility in your working day to help you create the right work-life balance. So, Ben, thank you once again for joining us.
No problem.
Saeed, thank you for joining from Birmingham. Sabina, thank you for jumping in from Warsash as well. Pleasure to have you all on board the webinar today. As always, if you're joining us for the first time, use the chat box that you are already using to post up some questions for Ben. Expect the presentation to be 25, 30 minutes. Jean, thank you for joining from Manchester, Bolton as well. Just post up your questions where you are posting up your greeting at the moment, and then come the end of the webinar, I can host some questions for Ben from you as well. So anything at all to do with the subject matter that Ben's talking about, please post it up here. Likewise, if you're going to be one of those watching on our Facebook Live, Twitter Live, or YouTube Live as well, if you'd like to, I'll be monitoring those on my phone as well. So any questions you've got, I know we get quite a few questions on Twitter and Facebook as well, so post them up there and I'll position those to Ben as well. So without further ado, that's my very long-winded introduction and housekeeping rules. Ben, I'll let you take it away. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Alex, and thank you for having me first of all. But secondly, thank you to those of you who tried to join the event yesterday, and it's great to be having something called Bounce Back Live, because we are bouncing back from a few challenges that we had yesterday. So thank you for those of you who are joining us today for the session. So as Alex mentioned, my role within Mitel is my official title is the Head of Professional Services and Charity Sectors within Mitel in the UK, which gives me a broad spectrum of organisations that fall within there, and the varying different types of adoption of technology and awareness of what technological benefits can bring. I see the whole spectrum around there. So on today's webinar, I'll be taking you through the topic of the Agile Office. So what is Mitel's view on that, how to create that, the things to think about, what we've seen during these last 16 weeks, and how we see the future of working, how the Agile Office, we see that going to evolve as well. So as Alex said, if there are any questions, please do raise them on the side, and we'll be happy to address those at the end of the session if we haven't talked through them already. So the first thing for me is I wanted to, for those of you who may not have heard of Mitel before, I just wanted to do a very short introduction of that, because it kind of sets the context of what I'm going to talk through as well, and how that relates to the Agile Office. And we are a UK company, and we've been around for 47 years. And within a technical industry, that's a hell of a long time. It's a lot of innovation as new technologies come about, they become more market ready. We've been at the forefront of all of that. We are a core part of the fabric of the UK enterprise, really, with more than 30% of what we deem as SME companies using Mitel systems. And as part of that, every 14 seconds, somebody somewhere in the UK buys a Mitel phone or a soft phone license. So we really are providing mission critical communications to some household names, but also some other organisations of various different shapes and sizes. But all of those are looking to us to provide services which are going to enable them to communicate better with their customers. Whilst we're primarily known for providing telephony, as I mentioned before, as innovations happen, we've seen this concept of remote work, and the tools that are needed to accomplish those fall under what's called unified communications. That's the industry term for that. And Mitel, we provide that through collaboration, video, and engagement services around there. The other element is engagement of end customers and impacting positively the customer journey and the customer experience. And Mitel facilitate that and help our customers and partners do that through using what we call omni-channel contact center. And I'll come on to that later on. But that is a technology which enables people to contact you a lot easier, and for you to manage that a lot better. Whether it's cloud, which is clearly a direction of travel at the moment, or whether it's on-premise or a mixture of the two, Mitel is perfectly positioned to help you wherever your IT strategy is now, or wherever you see it going as well. So we are a recognised brand within the industry, and we are very much part of the fabric of the UK communications sector as well. So I found this cartoon, which I thought kind of summed up things quite nicely, really. For a lot of people, we are definitely in unprecedented times, and nobody could have foreseen where we are today. And I believe what's happened with, I guess, the sort of nature of this is that it's forced us to look at ourselves in a bit of a different light. And we can probably be honest that maybe we weren't as prepared as we thought we could be, because we never realized we needed to have to be prepared, if that makes sense. We're being forced into a situation where we've got to think differently and provide services to staff and customers accordingly that maybe we haven't had to do, or really haven't been at the top of the priority list. But it's what we've seen now throughout this period is that the need to communicate has never really been more important. So how do we do that? So I guess there's a few things that are, if I give you the sort of the take of it from what we've seen before this happened, we were already talking about 70% of businesses worldwide being, working on a digital transformation plan. Forbes tells us that. Within the UK, what we actually seen is that number was quite a lot lower, around sort of 36 to 40%. And digital transformation was a very broad kind of topic to talk about. I'm specifically here talking about communications, but digital transformation could mean a lot of things to a lot of people. We saw really that the ability to work from home was maybe seen as a privilege. So people who justified that in whether the seniority or the type of job that they did got it, but it really wasn't something that was for the masses. The masses were expected to come into the office, and was that really the right thing to do? Because if I couldn't see you, perhaps you weren't working. Now, what we have seen is that actually people are very productive when they get home, and actually probably almost too much so in certain circumstances where you feel that you're a bit swamped by a lot of this. There was a recent study by Total Jobs that talked about the cultural presenteeism, people actually going into the office, regardless of how they felt or whatever, it actually led to the loss of 53.5 days of productivity every year. So that's over 10 working weeks, really. So is it the right thing to do? And there was always been a thing about maybe people in customer services or contact centers shouldn't be working from home. They should always need to be in the office. So lots of face-to-face office meetings and video. It's interesting now hearing about video and seeing people's take-up of that, because it's actually been around, believe it or not, since 1927. Really, it only became commercially viable in the 1990s, but actually only when people wanted to start to use it was in 2010 when Apple brought out FaceTime. And actually at that point, people then started to use it in their private lives. And it's now brought forward to where we are today, where actually I'm getting involved in more video meetings than I ever have done before. And interestingly enough, in a role that like mine, where I'm meeting a lot of people for the first time, you would typically speak to them on the telephone first, then you'd have a face-to-face meeting before you would then maybe at a later date have video. It's come around full circle, whereby the concept of I don't like seeing myself on screen. We've almost got to that point where video conferencing services now, we view them in a different light. They are we've gone away from that original perception of it. So with all of that kind of presenteeism culture, maybe not giving the tools to everybody because they didn't really need it, there was a real lack of investment in end user comms and collaboration tools, which kind of, I guess, meant that maybe our remote working culture was not as fully formed, because actually we were in ourselves putting a bit of a hurdle between that. In IT, what we were seeing was that the acceptance that cloud was the way forward. That was going to be a direction of travel that not only technology vendors are pushing, but people are genuinely seeing business benefit around it, but maybe not now. We'll continue to use the assets that we've got, but we will use cloud in the future. So if we then started that, and then when we're seeing moving through the COVID side of things, I've kind of put a bit of a jokey graph on the right-hand side, but which some people can maybe relate to. But now, remote working is the thing. We are all now. Only some organisations are bringing people back to work. I saw that some of the large ones in London have started opening the offices, but they're not expecting anything more than 15% occupancy in some of these really large buildings, because people are starting to see that you can work from home. And I think management culture and trust in employees over this period of time has changed. People can be trusted to do the job. So what we've also seen is people, two types of people, which is, of course, there was an initial requirement to get things up and running. And that might have lent to what we call in the industry shadow IT, which is almost handing over the choice to the user as to what tools they used. And you could download a free video tool yourself. So why don't you just do that? We've seen organizations leave that choice up to the employee versus others that have made a bit more of a strategic decision to say, okay, we need to think about this, and let's get a foundation in from which we can not only deliver services today, but also where does that lead us in the future should this ever happen again. So within Mitel, that led to an initial big spike of stuff. We are heavily present in some of the key sectors such as NHS, central and local government, as well as some of the other service related industries. So we've got a lot of people out there who and we saw a big spike in the use of our remote working and our video conferencing services. We started to hear from customers that meetings were now with a specific purpose. It was almost a bit intrusive, having to ask people for regular engagement as well. They had to set up scheduled meetings, really, because of the propensity not to be in the office and not being able to bump into people. Then you felt you had to sort of set time aside. Certainly what we were seeing was that senior management updates and communications was seen as paramount. So they were using different channels to get that out over, whether it was chat channels, whether it was video channels, with a bit more importance on that. We're also seeing tools being used to increase training on people. How should I be working differently to manage people that I can't see? And what else do I need to be thinking about and being mindful of around managing an output of person, their personal circumstances, mental health and well-being being really key. So we've got so what we're seeing with that is over this period of time as well, people wanting to move to the cloud, not just for business continuity perspective, but also getting services up and running is a lot quicker within a cloud basis. So we've seen a real shift in terms of, yes, we know we're in this, we know we've got to do something, and it's basically people investing in things. So I guess, where are we now then? So we've had the immediate reaction of trying to get services up and running. We've got people getting to grips with the new normal and using some of the video conferencing services that are out there and potentially dropping their own. We've then had that management approach of, well, this is how we're working, maybe seeking out stories from how other people are working as well to try and get to a professional structure of how we're doing this and be able to communicate that. We're definitely moving between reassurance into recovery. We need to be thinking about now is what happens if this happens again, or have we deployed this right in the first time? Can we improve this? So what are we thinking about from a long-term perspective as well? There was a recent study that Bloomberg had via Theta, which is a financial organisation, of 2,000 UK workers. Look, there's a real, definite, from an employee perspective, in the current circumstances, where do we want to go back into the office? Do I have to go back into the office? I've proven that I can work without that. Is it better for the business if I don't go back into the office? There is a definite mindset change, and obviously, with no vaccine being around, how safe is it to go back and carry on public transport around there? So we need to be thinking about that and thinking about an agile office. And what does that actually mean? It doesn't necessarily mean to be somewhere where you go. It might be just the state of mind of where you are. So what does the future look like? And I thought this cartoon was also quite interesting as well, because it shows that maybe we're not in this for a one time only. Maybe there are going to be a few different puts and shoves within the marketplace. Paul Doughty from Accenture, I saw this recently. I thought this was a great quote, really, which is, for a lot of people, they won't be working from home. It's more like living in the office. So I think that the concept of remote working now is going to be very much more thrust upon. I was reading an article from, there's a recruitment software company called Wave that manage kind of job applications, and they track those around there, and 70% of job applications now for office work are all having a mention of remote working. So people are not going to be straying too far from the office. Too far from their home in terms of having to go to an office. So we need to be mindful that we provide them with tools to enable to give them exactly the same experience from a communications and an engagement side of things, from a technical and digital side of things, they would have within the office. That's really important. So lots of words on this one, but we are looking to come into a hybrid workplace. People are going to work from home. They're going to work from client sites or other sites, as well as the office. We are social beings. We do want to be around people on the whole. We do need to engage with people to get our jobs done. And technology is going to help us do that, because we're going to stretch this concept of an office far and wide, I guess, within there. I don't necessarily need to be in the office now to do my job. I could be absolutely anywhere, provided I can create the right output, but I still need to have that engagement from people. We've got to think of solutions which enable us to communicate with people over different channels, as well as having the right environment for that. There are going to be times when it is necessary to meet up. We totally get that, whether it's client-based, whether it's team-based. People do want that physical engagement aspect of things. So the Optimum Agile Office is going to be, it's just wherever you are, you're going to be contactable, or you can contact people wherever you choose to be, on whatever device is the right device for you. It's always got to be available, and it's just got to be easy, really. A quote down here from Jeff Raskin, who founded one of the Apple founders. You know, it's really clear today. People want to be able to use things that are just quick and easy, and they want to be able to trust that they're always going to be available. You know, that's what we here at Mitel, that's what we strive to do. You know, we really want to make sure that these things always work all the time, because at that one point in time where you really need it to work, it's just got to work around there. But I also want to have the choice as to how I choose to make that work, and which device or soft phone approach or laptop or headset, whatever it chooses to be, it's got to be exactly the same and easy to use around there. So when we're talking about the concept of an agile office, there's hundreds and hundreds of features and buzzwords in the industry that pops up, and hopefully you can see these on the screen. And we sort of put those all under a industry standard term of unified communications. And there's lots of organizations out there that will provide you with some of these as just separate services. And we've all got there's probably some very high profile names that you can see do that. Some of you are using those. What we are seeing is there is more of a trend to try and use a simpler user interface and have a lot more of these services and features that come out of the same application. It's too difficult. Sorry, Business Wire was talking about the difficulties of user applications within the business. And at any one time, 74% of business users have got 5 or more applications open at any one time. That's crazy. A lot of these things, from a communications perspective, can all be done out of a single application. So again, make it easy around there. There's too many people trying to cram up with lots of bits of innovation, and that innovation might actually just touch on one single part of the feature and of the feature set, but it might ignore everything else. Is that the right thing to do? There's different schools of thought about that, but there are lots of tools as such that we have in Mitel that provide all of these in a single, simple, easy to use experience for the user. So we need to be mindful of that. But the Agile Office is providing all of these functions that you would normally get out of your office wherever you need to be. So I'll just touch on a few things and now just 4 elements which hopefully will lead us to some discussion afterwards. Yeah, we talk about the new normal. Well, maybe it's just the normal now. You know, we are seeing that 80% of the workforce can now actually be classed as deskless. So remote working is a distinct possibility for 80% of the workforce. Clearly, there's going to be some, whether it's agriculture related or maybe healthcare related, that you can't be. But a large part of the working population can work from wherever they want. What are we going to see? We are going to see corporate office estate consolidation. There's lots and lots of reports in the market about that, and people reviewing leases and things like that. We've gone from 1.7 million people working from home in the UK to over 20 million of people in home workers. BBC News reports on that. So what they're also saying is the impact of that on offices is that the offices will become more like social hubs. You will go to an office whenever you've got to meet people. Those offices will be supported by smart technology, whether that's sanitization or near-field communication, so that when it knows you're in a particular room, it will fire up your video conference or open up certain conference ports, i.e. so you don't have to touch things which might restrict, you know, sort of from a healthcare perspective, is a lot better. We are going to see more acceptance that technology will support remote working, video. that does come with its own challenges, and of course many people will have realized that maybe their bandwidth isn't suitable for that. So we are going to see organizations, or we are already hearing about organizations offering around bandwidth requirements to be reassessed around there. Of course, people want to meet, and I think coming out of lockdown, there's a lot of people that do want to have meetings. They will increase over time, but the culture of more remote working meetings will happen, and using technology to facilitate that. The movement to cloud is important. The movement to cloud is important because not only does it give you the speed of deployment and the flexibility of scaling up and scaling back down, but of course that business continuity, which is going to be really key, of keeping services going. And what I would say is, whilst I'm sat here talking about it from a vendor perspective, we are very mindful that we play a part, and your strategic deployment partner is going to be critical in terms of that, because communications is one bit, but they all sit on a network. There's all other elements that you need to think of, and from a cultural perspective. So working with partners who have done this before and really understand the cultural, the technical, and the human elements of all the technology is really important. But those are decisions being made now that you need to think about. Processes will become more people-centric. I've talked about before, because management styles effectively happen because you saw people and you could engage with them more. Now you can't see people. What do you do? So you need more training. And people will the types of characters that maybe move into management will change potentially. And corporate firms are going to engage with wellbeing and mental health organisations. So the Agile Office is made up of a number of things. It is technology, of course, but there's also a cultural side of things. How do you maintain your cultural identity? How do you support your remote workers from a well-being and mental health side of things? And sadly, we are in a world where, with everything being technical, there's going to be a security aspect that we need to focus on. So making sure that security is a key part. There's been some very high-profile examples and of people who haven't potentially thought about that at the start. They've been looking to get their services out. We here at Mitel, that's basically mainly because of the sectors that we work in. A lot security has always been very high on the agenda. So it's key. It's important to think about the security nature of that and what inherent security stuff comes with the solutions, as opposed to ones that people have to add on afterwards. That might be something to think about as well. And it's got to be easy to use. We've come, Google, Amazon, Microsoft, all these people, they make things easy to use. They are leading the way in terms of innovation from a user experience side of things. And I have banged on a bit about, why all-in-one solutions can absolutely play a part, because you can only deal with a single application which does everything. But of course, as innovation happens, there will be people that come up and these tech partnerships will occur where we will need to integrate with various different organizations and different solutions. So think about maybe, the Agile Office is all about making things talk to things as well. So having solutions and services which are able to be integrated into other services is going to be important. I talked at the start around contact centers and what we call customer experience or CX. So from an Agile Office perspective, the Agile Office doesn't only touch on the people who are working in from an office. There are also people in what we call the front office who are engaging with customers, doing customer service or other types of engagements where there's lots of incoming calls or interactions happening. And with people being remote working and wanting to engage more on their own channels, their own preference, the buzzword in the industry is omni-channel. So that is coming across maybe over social media, over WhatsApp, maybe over email, maybe over chat, also, of course, over voice. And we tend to use voice as the last point where we really have to talk to somebody. Digital engagement with customers, you need to have solutions which enable people to engage with customers across all of those. So contact center will be a very key part of that. And some people don't think of contact center. Contact center isn't just battery farms of people working in there. Contact center is all about routing the right engagements, the right interactions to the right individuals within the organization who can manage that process. So maybe thinking about it in the broader sense as well. So those kind of services are going to be really, really important. And I saw a stat around artificial intelligence and powering 95% of all customer interactions by 2025. And I thought, crikey, that's a really bold statement. And then actually, when I looked into the article a bit further, well, we're already having that influencing factor already, because when you go on social media, or if you go onto a Google search somewhere later on, an algorithm has already picked up the fact that you've expressed some intent on wanting to look at that, and it's suggested some adverts, or it's suggested something you might want to do. So we're already being influenced to engage or think about processes using artificial intelligence, and we are seeing more people want to engage over text and chat channels. So whether it's messaging like WhatsApp, or whether it's web chat on there, it's less personal, I guess, because you don't have to speak to somebody, but you'll still know that someone's there in order to do that. So again, and where does a chatbot come into that? So can a chatbot assist there? We are talking about the Agile Office. The Agile Office has people in it, but also could the Agile Office be supported by technology such as a chatbot, where it's offering a suitable interaction point to cover off regular routine inquiries from people before they need to be passed on to a human person? And that could maybe extend your opening hours, or that could just genuinely facilitate more answering of interactions as they come through, so current staff aren't overwhelmed. So have a think about that. The Agile Office needs to extend out to embracing customer journey as well. So the shifts that we're seeing, I've talked about them. It's about moving to the cloud. That is definitely going to give you some significant business benefit, making things more real time. So rather than sending in an email and waiting for people to respond, actually our patience is very, very low. So having more intuitive and more immediate responsive times is going to be important. I just talked about the omnichannel side of things, and that integration bit I talked about before. Integration to something took ages, and it was quite slow and cumbersome. The industry is about using what we call microservices, which is breaking down those code sets, making things a lot more native in terms of getting things done a lot quicker. Doing that, and data is now influencing the decision-making processes. We've got lots of data. We can use that to improve processes, to suggest things, and that's where chatbots may come in, or it might just be data influences how we choose to set up services around there. And let's make it easy. Whatever we do, it's got to be intuitive, and it's got to be easy. So within Mitel, and I'll make a shameless plug about this. Our services and our flagship product is MyCloud Flex. It is an all-in-one encompassing communication service that can be deployed in a privately secure cloud, or it can be deployed on premise as well, or a mixture of the two. It is something that we're seeing customers come to us and ask us for options, and the options are boundless. It's just, here is the core service that we provide. It's all Mitel software and all Mitel devices, and there's no compromising of features, because we can fully customize this to exactly what you need for it to suit exactly your business process and your Agile Office strategy, whether that's meeting something now or giving you something in the future which you can grow into. It provides a lot of the services that you would just expect to have out of the box, fully controlled by yourself. And for the customers that have deployed those, we've seen some significant benefits around that from an agile business. The collaboration tools that people have by trying to get hold of people. Are you available? I can see that Alex is on the call, so I won't call him. I might text him, or I can see that he's away from his desk. It just makes you a more connected company, and it helps in terms of efficiencies and productivities around there. And particularly in the current climate, in certain circumstances, it's really tough to get good people. Once you do get good people, we don't want to see them leave, and by giving them the right tools to do the job, and enable them to work in a different way. We have seen through Mitel customers that there's been a significant decrease in staff turnover, and also from a sick day policy as well. So the Agile Office, enabling people and giving them the tools to the job wherever they may be, is going to give you some significant benefits. But I thought I would kind of wrap up really with giving a couple of slides of guidance really. But the 5 C's to enable a successful Agile Office. Number 1 is cloud. That is a bit, you can't go anywhere with it without hearing about a cloud. But the cloud and being able to consume services from the cloud, you're not responsible for keeping them up alive. That's what the vendor or the partner will do with it within that cloud. It makes things easy to consume, easy to set up, easy to trial a few things as well. So cloud is going to be it drops the barrier for you for enabling services and flexing them up and flexing them down. Have the right collaboration tools. If you can look at the all-in-one solutions. It makes it easier from a user experience to be able to have one single application to go to. Contact center. For those who have got a customer advice line, customer services, or a sales line, things like that. We're talking to lots of estate agents and property-based companies that are really seeing the benefit of omni-channel contact center and having that social media presence as well. Contact center is going to be a very, very key part of the tools. But as I said, don't think of it in the sense of there's lots of people sat there answering calls in a battery hen farm. It might be that certain processes actually lend themselves to contact center itself. So it may not be calling it contact center. Culture, that's hugely important in Agile Office. It needs to be led from the top. So the trust factor that we talked about. So within Mitel, it's fantastic. We're trusted to get on with doing the job, and we're measured on output effectively as to what it is, rather than have I seen you for the last couple of days. So culture is really, really, really important, and setting that framework of giving you the tools to the job. I've given you the tools to the job, and I expect you to do that, and I'll support you in however way I can do. And culture is really, really important. And finally, community. Who else is doing this? Who else can you talk to that's either in a different part of the business that's adopted these approaches or has refined theirs and been doing it a bit more innovative for a bit longer, a bit more progressed in their thinking, or who outside the industry, so looking at different things. And more importantly, when I talked to you before about partners, it's not just the vendor, it's also that the reseller themselves as well. They play a really, really big part of that, because they might plug together various different types of technology to make it work for the Agile Office. They will be considering firewalls, they'll be considering the telephony, they'll be thinking about user culture and their training of people. So the community aspect, there's lots of people out there doing this, some good examples and some bad examples, but there's lots of people to talk to who are more than willing to share their advice. So please, by all means, we're here at Mitel to help. We can point you in the right direction, give you some guidance, but there's lots of other people as well. So I thought I'd end on the last three, but how do we prepare for the Agile Office? We know the Agile Office is coming. It's already here now, arguably. We're being forced to work in a particular way because of the current circumstance, and we will be coming out of this, but it will change the working behaviour in the long term. So first of all is decide what you want your future Agile Office to be. Is the future Agile Office that you have be like Twitter and say, well, you can work from home for the rest of the time, and you don't have to come into the office? Is that what you want it to be, or is there a half and half scenario around that? Once you've worked out that and what's good for the IT team to manage as well as your people, do you already have the tools to be able to do that? So have a look at what you've currently invested in. There's lots and lots of things that we're seeing where people have made a decision who've got Mitel systems to go and look at something else because they never really knew that their current license even did that. So are there ways, are you on an old piece of software that might be able to sort of assist with that? So by doing that, please do speak to your vendors. Please do speak to your technical partners. They'll talk to you about where things are, what's coming down the roadmap, and actually maybe even if there's a gap in things, what are the right solutions to look at, because those are the ones that better work with your existing infrastructure. So I'm coming at that from an IT perspective, of course, being a vendor, but there's clearly going to be some cultural things that need to be managed along the way. So the Agile Office, it's here to stay. We've had an immediacy of having to get it up and running. I think a lot of people can say it's worked, a lot, whether it's good or bad, but it has worked. But now we're in a chance where we can reflect and think about what do we want the Agile Office to look like in the future. And here at Mitel, we're here to help you with that. And please do come and talk to us. Thanks, Alex.
Awesome. Thank you very much indeed, Ben. I'm just going to refocus the screen. You beat me to it. Thank you very much indeed. There we are. Awesome. Yeah, I mentioned the Twitter example the other day. What did you make of that? They were like the first, I think, big blue chip organization to kind of put it out there, weren't they? Really?
Yeah, they were, and it was, it's interesting because they were the first ones to do it, and at the time there was a bit of a kind of moment, and I think a lot more organisations, large and small, by the way, are all thinking seriously about whether or not they really do need an office or as many offices as they have. It's a considerable cost around there.
It is, yeah. I was chatting to Grenade founder Alan Barrett on one of these webinars recently, and he was saying, our office was built for, I think, 40 people, and we've got about 70 in it at the moment, pre-lockdown. So he goes, we had a purpose-built building for about 150 staff to bring everybody in-house. And then now he's thinking, everybody's been uber productive, and maybe it's, it's a slightly false economy, given what's happened. It's kind of forced us into that way. But I've spoken to so many founders who said people have been more productive since they've been at home, or they've got those options, and it's what people decide to do, isn't it? Like, even just chatting to Melissa Snover this morning from Norris, and she was saying that they doubled the business in the last 4 months during lockdown. So they've taken on 5 staff who've never met each other, who've all been onboarded virtually, and now they've advertised for another 12 staff. It's an interesting place to be. And from your own experience, how have things gone over the last 4 months? Were you embracing some of this technology and way of working before, or were you pretty much 9 to 5, sat behind a desk? What was it like for you personally?
No, I guess the benefit of working for a tech company is we use the tools ourselves. So, I mean, personally, for me, about 15, 16 years, I've kind of been, I guess, working from home around there. So the use of the technology for me has not changed. And Mitel's always had a policy of work wherever you need to work, and that we have offices. There's clearly a recognition that people enjoy the social side of things, and there's a need to have people meeting in offices for client meetings and other team meetings as such. But for me, the technology it worked from day one because it's always worked. So I've kind of I've already been in that mindset of working. I won't lie, I have missed the social engagement with my colleagues, and we regularly have team meetings before. They're now all on video, so you still see them, but it's not the same. But the technologies work great for me personally.
And is there anything yourself that you've come across over the last 3 or 4 months, or maybe before that, given what you just said now, that you particularly recommend, any or a couple, anything like that you would say this is worth taking a look at for people who might not be used to this? Anything in particular?
In terms of technologies, do you mean, or just stuff? Yeah. I think there's lots and lots of technologies out there. There's lots of household names that we've come to be household names right now. What I would say is, what's right for the business. By that I mean the business is every time you do use one of those, you are going to incur a charge, and it does fragment kind of delivery of services. Don't get me wrong, there's a time and a place for this, but is it the easiest thing to do to have a different separate point solution for each one, or would it be easier to have a single solution which does everything? Maybe not the extent of some of the point solutions, but it does 95% of what you need, around there. So I've seen organizations, large and small, they've considered telephony as one thing, they've considered unified comms as something else, they've considered video as something else, it just creates a bit of confusion, really. And ultimately, when there's been a problem, then it's which bit's the problem? Is it the network? Is it part of that? So but I'm not saying that doesn't work. That does work for some people. The ones that, certainly large organizations where you're trying to drive standards, what I would say is, please don't leave it up to the end user to decide what they use and what they can download. That creates huge amounts of problems. And in organization that have got security issues, please do think about that very seriously. That needs to be taken from a strategic perspective in terms of the technology that you use. So, and others, we've seen people. I guess the big thing that we have seen is that cloud. I keep talking about cloud. apologise for a buzzword around there, but that's been really, really key. We had a very, very large charity, or two examples actually, a very, very large charity and a very small charity, both jump onto the cloud almost at the start of lockdown because they both had to set up wellbeing call centre services really quickly. I think 7 days. You could just never do that before on I'll kind of call it standard or older technology where it's on premise, because you wouldn't be able to get into the office to do it. You'd have had to think of things around it. So yeah, some good examples, some great stuff. I don't think anything's, what I would say is there's no right or wrong, but there are not consequences, but there are effects of whatever decision you choose to make around that. Here at Mitel, we're just trying to make those effects as positively impacting as possible, and as simpler user experience as we possibly can.
No, I think that's a really good point, because I've seen it myself a number of times in different businesses that I've been involved with it. You know, you can embrace all these different pieces of technology. Before you know it, you're actually more confused than you were in the first place, instead of actually having one central hub where you could get, like you say, 95% of what you need from it instead, and it just seems to work that much more smoothly. I think the consistency, isn't it? Everyone's looking for consistency, and you know, especially when it comes to communications, and if something breaks down, then it could irrevocably change things. Got a couple of questions for you pinging in here that I will jump up. So Gene says, if the Agile offices are coming, what will happen to the office buildings and how the customers of Agile offices are served? I mean, that's a big question, but I will pitch it straight at you.
So I think corporate offices will decline. That's my personal opinion. I think we're seeing that. Look, it is early to tell. So all of this right now is there's an immediate reaction. All of a sudden, a vaccine gets found, and actually things might actually start to visit. But I think one of the big things is that people might have noted, or might have recognised, corporate business might have recognised that they may not need to have as many. So I think those corporate, you know, in the sort of estates side of things, we will see consolidation within there. Sort of someone's talking here about a tech hub. Then yeah, maybe we will see more people using a kind of shared space around there. There is a place. There is a time. There is a place for an office, and I think those people who want to have an office, there is a corporate gravitas around there and bringing clients there. Of course, I get all that, but I think on the whole, if it's to support people working in their jobs, then actually, if the people aren't in the office 5 days a week and they're more now 2 days in the week, you know, the technology enables you to work in exactly the same way you had in the office. And I think people will be thinking about that as to whether or not they do really need that office, or that office in that exact same specifications they've got right now. Yeah,
it's interesting. One of the clients I was working with, those who are regulars know my main business is podcast making, branded podcasts for businesses, and one of the clients is the biggest flexible working organisation in the UK, and they were saying, like, initially business fell off the edge of a cliff because everybody handed in the 30-day notices, you know, with the WeWorks and the Foras and all the rest of it. But he said what's been interesting is with like zero marketing, they've been getting loads of inbound inquiries from companies who are looking to downsize to smaller office spaces, but maybe have them in multiple locations as well. So they said they might be getting, you know, less money for that, but if you increase the volume, you might be getting the same kind of revenue for those kind of businesses. And people want to have that. Even like Melissa this morning saying, you know, with Nourish saying, what we'd like to see is people doing a bit of, you know, coming into the office maybe, you know, once or twice a week, working from home 3 days a week. And that's what I was doing before, to be honest with you, because you still want that time with your colleagues to maybe do a bit of whiteboarding, you know, just kind of those kind of brain dumping exercises where you get a bit creative, isn't it? So, I think think about it, Alex, also from a talent pool perspective. Before, you know, maybe you chose the type of job that you did or the company that you joined because of the proximity to your office that you were. And if we are flipping that a little bit with this agile office approach, the talent pool all of a sudden becomes a lot bigger for people, because actually geographic distance is no longer a boundary. So it's things to think about. There's puts and shoves with all of this, I think. Yeah, absolutely. And I'll dive into a couple of the other questions. So Peter says, social engagement is often quoted as one of the reasons that people want to be back in the office, but does that have to be with colleagues? For example, if your local pub goes out of business and turns into a tech hub, then a 5-minute drive to that, meeting people unrelated to your business, head out to lunch with them, etc. would that satisfy that human need? Thoughts?
Wow, crikey. Tech hub that was a pub. I'd be. Look, I think people want social engagement. Look, we are social beings at the end of the day, and you mentioned it just recently about joining a company, and part of that is meeting new people and forming relationships, and they may not be the deepest relationships, but they're relationships because you've got something in common. So I think the social engagement thing is important. That's why I think there is going to be a place for offices around there, and they become more of a social hub. But I think the direction of travel currently is more remote working, an emphasis on that where possible.
Yeah, and especially I think another conversation, but when you see like the decline of the high streets, those shops becoming empty, and maybe just like with retail, it's an opportunity to re-envisage what the future of work is, what the future of office is. So watch this space. So and indeed, as Peter says, maybe the number of pubs that have gone out of business over the last decade as well, being turned into the likes of a Tesco's or something like that, or a Costa Coffee. So Raquel says, it is fantastic, the 5G and 4G. Unfortunately, there are many places where that is not a basic broadband connection. This makes it impossible to work from home or remotely. Broadband providers do not care about the user experience and waste users' time on web chats, phone calls, word support. Customer support has no authority to take action, help customers, only waste users' time by providing nice words. In the meantime, you can be stuck on a 2-year contract with a 4G or a broadband provider that do not care about their customers. How do you deal with this? Can we make 5G, 4G and broadband providers accountable to provide the service they're supposed to offer? Big question.
Wow. Okay. Look, there are going to be places around the UK. There is I think there's a commitment, or there's some sort of plan to try and connect as many rural areas as possible around that, and mask sharing, all that other kind of stuff around there. That's happening at a more of a government perspective, trying to influence the mobile providers around there. I think more importantly, it's that the comment that you made there about the sort of customer support and trying to help people around there and not taking care of customers. That's a big worry as well. So how do you make them more accountable? I guess that's what these think tanks and Ofcom and all these other kind of stuff are doing. From a vendor perspective, we're providing that innovation, we're providing the technology which enables them to service more people, which enables them to potentially give you a better experience. I say, even if it's a bad outcome, as in you don't get what you want, at least it's a better experience. You get hold of somebody, they give you the right guidance, and they're doing that. I think that's all from a technology perspective. That's all we can do, and clearly, it's these other wider groups that need to be holding the Vodafones, the O2s, and the people who are doing the rollouts and the broadband rollouts to account, the open reach and things like that. So that's a big question. It's a big question.
It is, yeah. Got a question or a comment, I should say, on the Twitter live feed as well from Number Group Utilities. Say, after 3 years of remote working, you'll drop video and stick with voice calls. I love my team, but I don't want to see them every 10 minutes whilst in my PJs.
Yeah, no one wants to see that. But interestingly, when we look at some of the stats, video is a big explosion right now. But actually, voice, certainly into so I'll go back to customer services, for example. We've seen stats from the call center reports recently about voice still making up 80% of inquiries. Right, now, that means that if you think about kind of why people are engaging, you often, when it gets to that point where you either lost patience or it's so complex that you will use voice. It's always going to be a significant channel around there. It's just the others are there to help as well, if they can do, to make sure you try and get some stuff, so some help.
Yeah, I was just seeing if there's any more questions on there. So any last questions from anybody, please post them up to Ben now before I give him the opportunity to wrap up. I thought that was an interesting one, actually, when you said, the recent survey of UK workers at 57% do not want to go back to a normal office environment with normal office hours. That's interesting. And I suppose these surveys are obviously going to carry on, aren't they? And we'll see how people change as people do go back to the office. I mean, some people still aren't working, are they? A friend of mine said that still can't work for a particular type of beauty therapy that she offers, for example. So, and then we see in the US, see California, don't we? Like, shutting everything down a month after. So this is a fluid environment, isn't it? But I think, like you say, Ben, with your presentation, the more opportunities that are out there that people can utilize and become familiar with is only going to help us, because, whether we end up with a second wave in the winter in this country or, before then, the fact that we're used to working in this way, if we can actually get ahead of the game now and get organized, get the technology that we need to help us to be able to work remotely or a hybrid version, of these things is only going to help the economy and help our individual businesses. And you say that 25% on the survey haven't even been offered flexible working options by their employers yet either. So is that going to change?
I think that just shows that some people are in a state of, not everyone's come back. Is everyone going to come back? Where's my business coming? There is a lot of uncertainty. That's that study was like sort of 1 month in to lockdown. So we have to be mindful of that. It's starting to get an early temperature check as to where people, where people see themselves going. But the other one was that started off from Wave Recruitment, which was about 70% of new job postings include the words home working or remote working. That says to me a lot.
Those keywords are going to be far higher in the search engines, aren't they? In the volume.
Yeah.
We found that just with I think it was the last webinar we did on Friday, and it was on Facebook ads, and they just say the difference in keywords being searched for, and I think, like you say, home working and those kind of keywords are going to be right up there. Well, look, let's I'll let you have the last word. What would you like to point people in the direction of, if they'd like further information, and any final thoughts from yourself as well? Thanks, Ben.
Thanks, Alice. Yeah, so first of all, thank you everybody for sticking with it. Thank you for the questions. It's been useful, and you made me think a little bit there, which is always good. Technology's here to help, is what I would say. It's an enabler. It's not the be all and end all, but it is an enabler. There's lots of other things around. An agile office is comprised of lots of elements. Culture being stuff. Humans. There's lots of elements to think about. At Mitel, it's about making the experience as simple as easy as possible to enable you to work how you want to work. And I think that is where the agile office really is. It's about choice. And as long as it's choice without compromise, that's the main thing. So what I would say is, have a think about, does your existing way of working, is that suitable for the long term, and where does it fall short? Please do reach out, whether it's to myself, and I have my contact details afterwards, or to other technical partners within the industry to get good guidance and good advice around there. There are lots of people that are willing to share, and forums like this, Alex, are brilliant. They're the kind of things that just gets people talking about things. So we're here at Mitel. We're around. Please do contact us. Please have a look on the website. And Alex, I think there's some resources that are going to be shared afterwards. Around some good articles, just to get yourself thinking about things. But have a think about now. Have a think about where you want to be, and is that. Are you there already, or do you need some help with getting and thinking of things and aligning stuff together? We're here to help. Awesome. As Ben says, we'll be able to send everybody who registered for this webinar yesterday, and the additional people we had over the last 24 hours register as well, and appreciate you sticking around. And it was seamless once we got up and running today. Thank you again, those of you who posted up questions and been watching on social media as well. Greatly appreciate that. So if you do want to register for the webinar, you still can, to watch the replay, which will be there ad infinitum. As soon as I press end broadcast here, the replay will be available here on Crowdcast, on Facebook, on Twitter, and YouTube as well. And then everybody who registered here on Crowdcast will be able to send out an email, as Ben said, with some links and information. And it said, for me, biggest takeaway is choices, isn't it? Just want more choices. 100%, it's only going to help us all in the long term. So thanks again, Ben. If you're already down there, give us a shout. Will do. Take it easy. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for joining us. Bye-bye.
Bye now.